you what the Lord has done. So many reasons to lift up Jesus.
This is Senior Pastor Jamaal Bernard from the Christian Culture Center, and I want to welcome you to today's message. Wherever you're listening from, at home, in the car, or on the move, I believe this message is going to challenge, inspire, and help you grow. Now let's get into today's message. This message is a message that I came up with. I said, Lord, I need a message, that you would like to share with the people, some type of a reminder message, some type of a message that just really reinforces what has happened at the cross, something that happened at the cross, major thing that happened at the cross. And one of the things that I say is there's an eighth saying, I call it. I call it the eighth saying. So you got the 7 last sayings, but I call it the eighth saying. And the eighth saying to me is when Jesus was on that cross, the statement that he was saying was, check, please. Okay, don't worry, we're going to go somewhere because by the time you end up out of here, you're going to be saying, check, please. Because you got to understand when Jesus was on that cross, right, he was there, a sinless man, paying for a debt that we could not pay, right? He was responding to a need of a people that could not respond themselves. So when I said, okay, Lord, I see where you're going with this. And it needs to be a reminder because there's 4 things that happen at the cross and we're going to talk about it. But I said, let me understand this whole thing called check and why do restaurants call it check? Right? You got the check or the bill. And we're going to break down the 2 of them real quick so you can see where I'm going with this. Because the statement for me was God was saying first check and then he said check, please. And I'm going to go somewhere with it. I'll explain it to you in a little bit of time we have here. So check, I looked up on the internet. I was going through, and trying to understand, and I landed here, and I pray that this is, I try to fact check it. And now on the internet, you got to fact check everything 4 or 5 times. So I landed at this statement: the English acquired check in the early 14th century from the Old French, and the French word was échiquier. I'm not French. If I'm not pronouncing it right, don't judge me. All right, please don't judge me. Échiquier. I can barely speak English sometimes, and that's my first language, so don't judge me on my French. But this is where it gets fascinating as I read this, and I had the perspective of the cross and reading this. See, sometimes we approach things with a certain lens, and when you start switching things, certain things start popping out. So when I'm reading this, and I'm thinking about the cross, it says, to threaten the king in a chess game, that's what échiquier means. To threaten the king in the chess game. So here it is. I see Christ on the cross and I understand who Satan is. And Satan was. He was the prince of darkness. He had some royalty. And so Christ is coming on the cross and he's saying check to Satan. He's saying, Satan, I got you in check. I got you in a position. So échiquier means to threaten the king in a chess game. A situation known as check in chess. A chess game ends when one player's king is put in check and cannot escape capture, a predicament called checkmate. So Jesus is on the cross and he's saying to Satan, they take him off the cross, he goes down and he's saying to Satan, I'm putting you in check. Right? Checkmate hasn't happened yet, but I'm putting you in check. Right? Because when he put Satan in check, because he took away his authority and power over the individuals that's going to come after, he says, check, please. So he said, check to Satan. And then as time goes on, you see how check morphed into the word bill. So when you go to a restaurant, you say, can I have the bill? Or may I have the check? Right? Excuse me, check please, right? So another word for check is called bill. And bill has been used to mean a statement of account owed. A statement of account owed. Since around 1400, it derived from the medieval Latin. I don't speak medieval Latin. So if I pronounce this wrong, don't judge me. Right? Can we be a judge-free zone with a pronunciation of non-English words? Or you can hold me accountable for the English words, because I speak English, but non-English words, please, right? Judge-free zone. So this word is called bulla, or B-U-L-L-A. You want to pronounce it how you pronounce it? And this Latin word means seal, of the sort found on official documents. So the bill derived from a Latin word, is a seal. So when he's saying check, please, or he's saying I have the bill, let me give. He said the bill is defined as a list of charges. It is a list of charges, and based on those charges, you owe a certain amount. So in the beginning, when sin entered, there was a list of charges that started piling up for humanity. There was a list of charges that started piling up for you. There was a list of charges that started piling up for Jamaal Bernard. And what Christ is saying, and because the thing about it is, the charge was death. God said, if you eat from the tree, you shall surely die. He didn't say you might die. He didn't say there's a possibility. He said you surely will die. So there's a bunch of charges on your bill. There's a bunch of charges on your check. And when Christ was hanging on the cross, he wasn't scared of your charges. And I'll give a story. So maybe you can come into my revelation of this whole thing called check, please. So I got 5 kids. And so I got 5 kids, and usually there's a friend lingering around. So it can be anywhere from 10 of us, 12 of us trying to go out to dinner. So depending on who's around will determine what level of restaurant I go to. Am I, come on. I need to speak to a large family. I need some help here. So we said, let's go out to dinner. Where you want to go? Where you want to go? Okay, such and such go. Oh, then the list just changed. Okay, such and such go. So the list keeps changing every time we add another person on. So we finally ended up at Applebee's. Applebee's on a date night, right? And I'm saying, sure, no problem. I'm excited. I love to spend time with my family. The friends that come and join us, especially because we're people of color, and some of the friends are not. So I like to show them how the dynamics of a black family has dinner, right? God has blessed me with the ability to shift and change the paradigm of what people look at black families now these days. So I get excited, but the excitement changes when we start driving to Applebee's. So like any parent, there's a talk, right? There's a talk before you go into the supermarket. Don't ask for anything, don't touch anything, right? So now you got to talk for when you go into a restaurant. And depending on how many kids you have with you that are not yours will determine where you start on the menu. So I said, no appetizers. Starters does not mean starters for you. Starters mean starters for somebody else. Right? I'm starting to add this up. And then you start, so not only does the list of restaurants you go to, then the menu start diminishing, right? So I said, stay away from the seafood section. Come on, am I by myself? So we start ordering, and I'm like, my son didn't listen to me, so he goes, he wants shrimp. I said, He made a mistake. He's gonna need more time to look at that menu. And as they're ordering, I'm trying to add up, and I'm calculating and trying to get all the numbers together to make sure that I can pay for it. See, but when Jesus was on the cross, he wasn't adding up. He wasn't calculating. He wasn't looking and telling you, okay, don't do this, and this is the charge. He said, look, check, please. He said, I got the bill. I'll die for you. And there's something significant about the burden that comes off your back. That's why when he says, come to me. He said, all that's heavy burdened. See, because you're bearing a check, you're bearing a bill that you were not designed to bear. Something is on your back because of the sin that's eating at your conscience, the condemnation that you go through, all the things that you go through. He says, trade with me. He said, trade with me. My burden for yours. And when he said that, he said, check, please. He said, give me the check. Give me the bill. Come on now. You know you're contemplating. You counting your money. and you hold on to that check, and he's trying to tear it out your hand. And some of you are fighting. And he said, let me take care of the bill. Let me take care of your debt. And sometimes we have to be reminded, because we live as Christians, and when the major thing that helps humanity is your ability to adapt. See, but your sense of ability to adapt can tend to lead to complacency. So we adapt to this Christian life, we get saved, but then we get complacent within this Christian life. And Christ is hanging on that cross for you. And he's saying, check, please. See, but in order for that to happen, four things had to come to a convergence. Four things had to come to a convergence. And I wrote this down. I said, in order for Jesus to say, check, please, the act that won us all back to him and canceled our debts, four things had to converge. And these are all four had to happen at the same time. It's like, once again, I talk about food. I'm a big guy, right? The struggle is real. Sometimes I admit it. You know, everybody has a struggle. Mine's is some good home cooking. You know, I get started with my wife's the starter is some empanadas, homemade empanadas. You know, and okay, let me behave. But it's like cooking. You got all the seasons, right? Right? You start cooking, and if you're missing a season, you taste it. It's like, this is not right. Something is missing. So all the four of these had to converge at one moment. And I love it, because if you read the word, you will see how strategic God is with everything he does. From the creation down to Revelations. He has put so much thought into everything that he does, because he understands the decisions that he makes and how much different it'll affect at a different level. He can see the effects, he can see the outcomes, everything he does. He is so strategic. So when he saw Adam, he saw the cross. So the first thing that God had to deal with was evil. Evil from a cosmic level down to the hearts of man. Look at what we're dealing with now with Ukraine, Russia, bringing it home with the issues of people still fighting against different ethnicities and ethnic cultures and stuff like that, and seeing one group as superior than the other. Look at the evilness. And that's why God said, if you leave man to their own, they'll destroy themselves. So the first thing was evil. See, evil entered this world the moment sin entered. I'll say it again. The evil entered this world the moment sin entered. So many people have a problem with this thing called evil. They'll even use this whole idea of evil to disqualify God. But I beg the question is, does evil, the existence of evil, disqualify the existence of God? I would say no. I would say evil does not disqualify the existence of God. If anything, evil shows the bigger necessity for God. See, I'm not saying God is the reason for evil, but I am saying that God sure is the answer for evil. He's not the reason, but I guarantee he has the best answer. And it was answered at the cross and the resurrection of Christ. And you've heard me say this before, because people say, well, if there's evil, there can't be a God. No, the question is, if there's evil, then there has to be good. And if there's good, there has to be a moral code to govern what good and evil is. And if there's a moral code, there has to be a moral code giver. And I call him God. So number one, evil had to be dealt with. The second thing that converged at the cross, in order for Christ to say, check please, was this thing called love. Love in the heart of God who gave his son. See, God is love. So God's love is not a reaction to sin, but God's love is immediate response to sin. So once sin entered, he responded in love. even in the fact that he took Adam and Eve out of his presence, came out of love, because if they would have stayed in his presence, they would have died. So even dismissing them out of their presence. Okay, let me behave. I was going to go somewhere else. See, with his love, he didn't condemn, but he decided on a plan to bring mankind back to him. He sacrificed and sent himself here to rescue us, to rescue you, to rescue me. Love is the supreme ethic. Love, and people say, oh, well, why is it evil? Well, there's evil because God gave us free choice. Whenever there is free choice, there is a possibility of sin. See, but only free choice authenticates true love. So God created a creature that had free will and said, no, I want to choose to love God. And this is real love. I'm about to start singing Mary J. Blige up in here. But we're going to behave. And so Romans chapter 5, verse 8 says, but God showed his great love for us by sending Christ to die for us. Not when we were saved, but when we were still sinners. Come on, he's loving us even when we were at our ugliest. That's not unconditional love. That's what I call cosmic love. Cosmic love. Number 3, the third thing that converged was this thing called justice. And why? Because there was a debt that had to be fulfilled. So yes, God has his love, his mercy, but his love and mercy coincides and runs at the same time as his justice. So justice still has to operate within the structure of the way God operates. But he knew that we couldn't pay the debt. So he sent himself to fulfill the requirement of the contract that was broken. And he received all of the injustice so that we can have justice. So there was a bill owed. There was a law that had to be satisfied. And though he received so much injustice, when he was crucified, he received justice for all when he rose from that grave. He defeated the enemy on our behalf. He took on our punishment and demolished our condemnation. And number four, the fourth thing that converged was forgiveness. Forgiveness through Christ. And I love this because I'm going to read a text and thank God Jamaal Bernard is not on the cross. Because he says, when they came to a place, Luke chapter 23, verse 33, when they came to the place called the Skull, they nailed him to the cross, and the criminals were also crucified, one on his right and one on his left. Jesus said, Father, forgive them. I said, man, even in spite of all this that he's going through, in spite of the torture, I'm telling you, if it was Jamaal on the cross, man, I would have even got to the cross. That first hit, like, okay, wait. I'm on the cross and they making fun of me. It says, as you continue reading, it said they played dice and then he said, if he saved others, they said, let him save himself if he's really God's Messiah, the chosen one. I'd have pulled those nails out. Like, I'm out. I'm going. Y'all don't deserve salvation. If it was up to me, I'm like, the way the people were treating him. And still, he decided to forgive him. You know why? Because on the backbone of forgiveness is this thing called love. So steeped in his desire to forgive him was energized by this thing called love. So even while walking on this earth, Jesus experienced much betrayal, much disrespect, much abuse, much hurt, much grief, all from the people he was sent to save. It took consistent forgiveness for him to continue the path. Even on the path to the cross, he had to maintain consistent forgiveness. Because like I said, at any moment, I would have quit. This Jesus is this next level guy. That's why we call him the GOAT. He is definitely the GOAT. This type of forgiveness is painful, though. But Jesus wanted to say, check, please. So it was worth it. So as I close, I want to leave you with this. Number one, as we as Christians, we have to start acknowledging, yes, there's evil. But let's not run from the whole concept. Yes, there's evil. That's why God had to come, because one of the things that converged was evil. So let's acknowledge that. And once we start acknowledging that there's evil, we have a better way of conversing with individuals that are battling and struggling with evil. So when they talk about evil, yes, there's evil, but this thing called the cross, something happened at Calvary that responded to this evil in the hearts of men. Something happened. And yes, there's evil. But the nice thing about it is, evil is temporary. Number two, we need to start embracing love. Not just the basic love, but the love that took Jesus to the cross. I'm telling you, that wasn't no simple love. That wasn't like that's my man's and them type of love. That wasn't that type of love that, yeah, that's my shorty. No, that was some next level love. Because at the driving point of every lash, he was loving us. Every time he got spat on, he was loving us. Every nail, he was loving us. So embrace the love. Because as you embrace the love, then you start reciprocating and sending out love. Then you are able to, when Jesus said love your enemy and you embrace the love of the cross, you say, okay, that's easy now. I can fathom that. I can understand that. I can comprehend that request because I'm not looking at my love. I'm looking at the love of the cross. So embrace the love so then you can reciprocate love to the others. And why? Because in 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 8, it says, above all, have fervent and unfailing love for one another, because love covers a multitude of sins. It overlooks unkindness and unselfishly seeks the best for others, because once you embrace that type of love, then you can forgive the way Christ forgave. Number one, you can forgive yourself. I'm telling you, because some of you in here, the reason why you're not worshiping is because of something you did last night. Some of you are not worshiping because of something you did in your past. Some of you are not worshiping. Some of you are not embracing the spirit of worship because you're condemning yourself. And he says, no condemnation. No condemnation. So if forgive yourself, if Christ is doing it, why can't you do it? And then start learning how to forgive others. See, forgiving others doesn't mean that you have to put them in the same space they occupied before when they trespass. Forgiving them releases you. Just because you forgive them doesn't mean you have to unblock them. I'll say that again. Just because you forgive them doesn't mean you have to unblock them. So acknowledge the evil. Embrace the love. Extend forgiveness. And I'm going to tell you this right now. Receive the justice that God died and rose for. Because the more you condemn yourself, the more the cross is a waste to your life. The more you condemn yourself, the more the cross is a waste to your life. He died so that you wouldn't have to punish yourself and so that you can live a free and new life.
Thank you for listening to Senior Pastor Jamaal Bernard of Christian Culture Center. Download the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and visit cccinfo.church for more. We'd love to see you in person. Join us Sundays at 10 a.m. at our Brooklyn or Long Island campuses.